How's going guys, welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Fem Kyubi, Anko and Juri. Part 2. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. Hiruzen let out a tired sigh as he read over one of the countless mission scrolls that were now stacked upon his large desk, separated in two separate piles. All of which pertain to the missions completed by Team 7. On one side were the reports given to him by Kakashi Hatake. The other, client testimonies of how the team performed their given tasks, with Nico encouraging all the clients to be unbiased in their assessments. Needless to say, Hiruzen was deeply disappointed in Hatake. It was evident upon comparing the two reports of the team's earlier missions that the masked Jonin downplayed the teenage Uzumaki's contribution towards the mission while elevating, and in some cases, exaggerating the Uchiha's own work ethic. The particular mission scroll from one of the few clients that didn't need any coercion from Nico had gone into detail as to how the Uchiha had nearly destroyed his garden due to Sasuke's inability to tell the difference between crop and weed. While the Uzumaki worked diligently to repair the damages the Uchiha had caused. The stark contrast to Kakashi's own report that blamed Naruto for the damage and had even gone as far as to dock the genin's cut of the mission payout. Something that Hiruzen would notice would become a reoccurring theme with each and every mission scroll, much to the elder man's regret as he allowed it to happen, trusting his shinobi to be truthful in their reports. Each and every scroll, it was the same thing. The Uchiha would do something to upset the client, Naruto would repair the damage his teammate did, and Kakashi would report the mission's completion while chastising Naruto and heaping praise upon the Uchiha before docking Naruto's cut of the payout. Seems I will need to reimburse Naruto-kun for his wrongful pay cuts. Hiruzen sighed, setting down the latest mission scroll in its designated pile. And it looks like I will need to have a long discussion with Hatake about his actions and blatant favoritism. The elder village leader then picked a large scroll that held the testimonies of Tazuna, Tsunami, and the rest of the villagers that resided within Nami no Kuni. Mentally preparing himself for what was to come. He already knew Kakashi's version of how Naruto disobeyed direct orders, endangering the mission and risking his teammates, namely Sasuke's, lives. As expected, the client's report heavily differed from the report Kakashi had given. Tazuna had praised the blonde for putting himself in harm's way to protect not only the super bridge builder, but also his teammate, Sakura, when one of the demon brothers had gotten away from Sasuke and charged towards the two. Naruto, with his quick thinking, had replaced himself with Sakura and took a puncture wound to the palm of his hand from the spiked gauntlet that had been laced with poison. Before knocking out his assailant. Tazuna's report then recounted the events during the team's first encounter with Zabuza and how Kakashi had gotten himself captured by Zabuza, something the masked Jonin had seemingly forgot to include in his own report, and how once again, albeit with a little help from the Uchiha, Naruto had devised an ingenious plan to free the silver-haired Jonin from the water prison Zabuza had the man trapped in. The next part of the scroll depicted the team's time spent at the bridge builder's home, clearly written by the man's daughter, Tsunami. The young woman wrote that during the team's stay at their home, Kakashi would be apathetic to their hospitality, while both Sakura and Sasuke would be downright rude to their hostess, the latter making demands when something wasn't to his liking. Lastly, there was Naruto. The only one on the team that went out of his way to thank Tsunami for her time and effort and even helped the young widow around the house. Hiruzen couldn't help but grin to himself. With the way the young woman was writing about the whiskered teenager, one might think she developed a crush on the lad. She also began to recount how Kakashi would train his students. Giving both Naruto and Sakura some mundane exercise while he would disappear with the Uchiha for hours at a time. Of course, Sakura would only do the bare minimum of her assigned training before taking off to stalk her crush or to lounge on the futon and daydream. Meanwhile, Naruto would continue training well into the evening hours when he would come in to shower. Is that dried blood? Hiruzen mused as he peered at the brownish-red droplets that stained the scroll. His aging mind quickly putting the pieces together as it became evident that Tsunami was fantasizing about something she wanted to do, or perhaps already did with a whiskered teen. The last half of the scroll depicted what had transpired both at the home of the bridge builder and the Battle of the Bridge, clearly written by both father and daughter. The first few paragraphs went into detail how Kakashi and the other two left with her father, leaving Naruto behind. Which she was thankful for, as shortly afterwards a pair of Gato's lackeys had shown up to kidnap the young woman and kill her son. The report from the young woman went on to regale how Naruto had swooped in, saved her son and rescued her in the process, eliminating both would-be kidnappers and securing them before creating half a dozen shadow clones to watch over her, then leaving towards the bridge to aid his team. The next part was clearly written by Tazuna, as the bridge builder went on to explain how despite their best efforts, the outlook was grim for both Kakashi and Sasuke, as both Zabuza and his accomplice, a young teenage boy by the name of Haku, were backing the two Konoha shinobi into a corner. Without a doubt in the bridge builder's mind, Naruto's arrival was the turning point of the Battle of the Bridge, as it was dubbed. According to the elder bridge builder, Naruto had managed to distract Haku long enough for the Uchiha to escape the dome of ice mirrors the rogue shinobi had trapped him in, with a clever use of shadow clones and distractions. It was unfortunate that neither Haku nor Zabuza survived the battle, Haku having taken a lightning jutsu to the chest courtesy of Kakashi to save his father figure, while Zabuza massacred Gato and his army of thugs in his final breath. Hiruzen was positive that the teenage Uzumaki would have been able to talk the two into joining Konoha with his patented talk no jutsu. Having read over all of these reports, I am glad I agreed to let Juri take him as her apprentice. Hiruzen thought to himself as he tossed the scroll onto the ever-growing pile of mission scrolls. Though I feel a great swell of pity for the boy and anyone who will be unfortunate enough to face him once she is done with him. The knock at the freshly repaired door broke him from his musings. "Enter," he called out. Upon the invitation, both Ibiki and Anko entered the room. Over the past week, Hiruzen had noticed that the snake mistress had been in better spirits, almost giddy at times. Enough so that the elder village leader deemed her safe enough to sit in on the interrogation of Tsubaki as it was conducted by Ibiki. "Here is my report, Hokage-sama," Ibiki stated as he handed the village leader the scroll, detailing all the information they had extracted from the disgraced Jonin. She was rather forthcoming when Anko mentioned inviting Juri Han into the room. Hiruzen could only sweat drop as the snake mistress shrugged her shoulders. Anyways, it appears that Tsubaki was given falsified reports of the now dubbed the Scroll incident, elaborating Mizuki's innocence, as well as implicating that Uzumaki framing Mizuki for the theft. Ibiki informed the elder man. "Hell, if it wasn't for the fact that I wrote up the original reports, I would have thought they were genuine as well. Who would have access to such reports?" Hiruzen questioned out loud, mostly to himself as he tried to think of any potential subjects. And to have such intimate knowledge of what had transpired that night. Unfortunately, Tsubaki does not know the identity of her informant. Ibiki stated, crossing his arms over his chest. Which is not surprising, considering how emotionally fragile she was. I doubt she even thought to question this unknown informant's motives. "Something I will have Jiraiya look into." The elder Hokage sighed, hoping the village's spy master would be able to shine some light on this mystery and why this unknown individual would target young Naruto. In the meantime, there is another matter we must address. Reparation. The head of the torture and interrogation replied, earning a nod from the Hokage and a small frown from the snake mistress, whom seemed to have something on her mind that she was mulling over. Unfortunately, with her not being for any notable family, compiled with the fact that she refused to do any missions after Mizuki's betrayal, Tsubaki has little in the way of monetary value to pay for reparations. Hiruzen stated. Due to the fact that Naruto was the son of the revered Jindaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze, and the sole heir of the Uzumaki clan, after the disappearance of his mother, Kushina Uzumaki, even if both were kept secret from the general populace and the whiskered teen himself for security reasons. The attempted assassination on him would send a shock wave of ramifications throughout the village and beyond. Clans such as the Hyuga and Inuzuka would demand answers as to why it was allowed to happen in the first place and would no doubt question the Hokage's ability to keep the village safe. Namely Tsume, due to the feral woman's close friendship, almost sister-like relationship with Kushina. The feral woman had still yet to forgive him for not allowing her to adopt Naruto at a young age. So, monetary compensation is out of the question. Anko spoke up for the first time since she entered the office. Unless we liquidate all of her assets. Indeed. The Hokage sighed. The medical treatment Naruto-kun required would make even our more prosperous of clans hard-pressed to pay them off. So even if we were to liquidate all of Tsubaki's assets, it wouldn't even make a dent in the overall bill. We are fortunate that Sin foot the bill for his operations. Sin Ibiki inquired, having vaguely heard of the organization before. Primarily that they operated outside the Veil in the Outerlands. Shinobi Information Network. Hiruzen answered, giving a side glance to the snake mistress before continue. The current head, Juri Han, has a vested interest in Naruto-kun and has taken over his training. Not sure if I should feel sorry for the kid or not, knowing what that woman can do. The large, scarred man stated. Should be entertaining, if nothing else, to see what he will be capable of in the finals. That Hyuga prick won't have a prayer. The snake mistress grinned. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. The village leader turned the discussion back to where they started. What action should we take with Tsubaki Kodo? Silence hung between the three for a handful of seconds. In all honesty, Hiruzen was surprised and relieved that Anko had not outright suggested execution yet, considering her mindset a week ago. No doubt in his mind that Naruto himself was the primary reason for the snake mistress's good mood. I may have an idea. Ibiki finally spoke up, prompting the other two to look at him. An unorthodox idea. Holding cell 143, Tsubaki Kodo. The young woman of 24 years old sobbed in the corner of her cell, her jaw-length black bangs matted to her wet skin as tears streamed down her cheeks. All throughout her cell was papers and partially unraveled scrolls, strewn about. Official reports of the night her fiancé had betrayed the village, as well as condemning evidence taken from Mizuki's own home after his arrest. Papers detailing meeting points between himself and the notorious traitor, Orochimaru. Written transactions for women the man had seduced and given to the Snake Sannin for experimentation, as well as plans to acquire the two clan heiresses from his own class to sell off after he had grown bored of them. The most damning, however, was the journal of her late fiancé lying face down on the ground before her. In it, detailed his biggest betrayal of all. After the scroll heist, Mizuki had made an agreement with Orochimaru that she would be given to him as well, in exchange for a moderate compensation. Not to be used for experimentation, but rather to be used as the traitor's next body when his current one finally gave out. 250,000 ryo. That was all her loyalty was worth to Mizuki. Having read through all of the evidence that had been presented to her, Tsubaki could only curse herself. She had allowed her unknown informant to manipulate her emotions with honeyed words. Sweet lies and false promises. Foolishly believing them, as if Mizuki would magically be released from prison after she had succeeded in killing the Uzumaki. And now my foolishness has led me to my death. She mentally lamented. To attack a fellow comrade carried its own severe consequences, but to attack the village's primary war deterrent practically guaranteed her execution. While the fools she had agreed to help in their attack on the Uzumaki teen had believed she wanted to kill him due to some misguided notion that he was the Kyubi incarnated, she wasn't that narrow-minded. She knew full well the difference between the prisoner and the warden. No, her sole purpose in targeting the whiskered teen was to avenge her wrongfully imprisoned fiancé. Tsubaki was brought out of her self-loathing by a loud clanging sound as the door to her cell opened, revealing a cat mask Anbu with long flowing purple behind the feminine figure. Tsubaki Kato, the cat-masked Anbu stated in a neutral tone. You are to accompany me. Didn't take the old man long to sign off on my execution. The black-haired woman sighed, seeing little point in addressing the village leader by his title. Having resigned herself to her fate, Tsubaki pushed herself off the floor and allowed the Anbu to cuff her before being led out of her cell. Unaware that it was not her execution she was being led to, but rather a second chance at life. Training Ground 44, Forest of Death. Desolation. That was all that surrounded the two combatants. Large trees that had once reached towards the heavens were charred and broken in hundreds of pieces and strewn across the forest floor. Massive craters, measuring at least 2 meters wide and 3 meters deep, scared the earth below them as the two continued to trade blows with one another in quick succession. The whiskered blonde dodging another blow aimed at his head before returning one of his own, putting his opponent on the defense for a few seconds. His right eye glowing a malicious red, taking the appearance of a certain nine-tailed fox. Over the course of the week when he was not being trained into the ground by his fiancée, he had settled on having his new eye remain his normal blue color for the most part until he activated it. Then it would take the appearance of Sif's eye to strike fear into his unfortunate victim's soul, much to the vixen's enjoyment and approval, finding it flattering even. No doubt it would cause a panic amongst the populace of Konoha. That wasn't the only change the blonde Jinchuriki had undergone. Gone was his horrid bright orange tracksuit. His new attire consisted of a pair of black Anbu pants held up with a dark red belt adorned with a fox head buckle, surrounded by 9 tails. Along with a pair of combat shinobi sandals and accompanying fingerless gloves that had metal plates with the Uzumaki swirl on the back of the hand. His torso remained bare, showing off his toned chest and abs, having forgotten a shirt, though he would sometimes wear a mesh sleeveless shirt, much to a certain snake mistress's enjoyment. The last piece of his new outfit hung loosely from a lone branch. A burnt orange trench coat with a blood red inner lining. Jumping back, he avoided an axe kick that shattered the ground once more. Quickly moving to create more distance, Naruto bounded backwards a few more meters before settling in a defensive stance as he awaited the black-haired woman to renew her attack. Her purple left eye glowing brightly as she licked her lips in anticipation, clearly enjoying their exchange. You've gotten better, Naruto Koi. Juri grinned before launching a renewed attack, putting her fiancé on the defensive once more. Well. Naruto grunted as he caught the punch she had thrown at him, grappling her arm and bringing her face in close to his, while his hands locked behind her head, keeping her close. It helps that I have an attractive and sexy sensei that actually instructs me. Are you trying to use Anko-chan seduction tactics to unbalance me, Naruto Koi? Juri grinned as she threw her weight backwards, breaking his hold on the back of her neck and delivering a quick kick to his chest, sending him sprawling backwards on the ground whilst she landed softly with practiced grace. "Well, a good attempt, such tactics won't work on me," the black-haired woman stated with a confident grin. Yeah. Naruto groused as he pushed himself up off the ground. "You and your damn trance." Trance was what Juri had called her mental discipline that allowed her to focus on just the battle and nothing else. Making any distractions practically useless against her, even varying degrees of genjutsu were useless against her due to her potent chakra that created her kai. "Don't worry about it, Naruto-koi, I will be teaching you how to utilize your own form of trance after I am comfortable with your progress of your Feng Shui engine," she reassured as she wanted to give her fiancé every advantage he could get. "I've been meaning to ask." The blonde began, taking a relaxed stance. "I know Maya-san explained that the Feng Shui engine is a miniaturized version of the Tandon engine, but what exactly is the Tandon engine?" "You'll have to ask Maya for the scientific details," Juri waved off the techno-jargon before giving a simplistic explanation. "But like our eyes, it generates and harnesses Kai while enhancing the user's fighting potential. What sets it apart is the sheer power it emits, and that unlike our eyes, it doesn't need to meet any special conditions to mimic techniques used against it, since it can assimilate any DNA material from its opponent and store for later use." Naruto was silent as he thought over the information his fiancé had given him about the device. With the way it described, it was like the Sharingan only multiplied by 1,000. The fact that all it needed was a bit of blood to copy any technique meant that it didn't even need to see the technique used. And with blood being very easy to come by on the battlefield, there was no limit to how many techniques the Tandon engine could copy. However, only one was ever made. Juri continued, breaking the blonde from his musing. "What happened to it?" "The person who designed it had it implanted within her own body." The purple-eyed woman grinned. "Who was it?" "Your mother," came the reply. Kushina-sama also founded SIN as a means to keep an eye on things around the elemental nations and beyond, as well gather intel on what exactly happened to Uzushiogakure. Specifically, Konoha's involvement. "What do you mean?" Naruto inquired, looking to his dark-haired fiancé to clarify. "How much do you know about Uzushiogakure?" The blank look on the whiskered blonde's face was all the dark-haired woman needed to see to get her answer, causing her to snarl slightly. The hypocrites blatantly fly the clan symbol on their headbands and jackets, but struck them from the history books. Whether it was simply removed from the curriculum of the academy or the entire history of the village remained to be seen. Something she intended to find out. Should have figured, fucking bastards. Juri sighed, gaining a hardened look. She would be having words with the old monkey about this blatant dishonor against one of the founding clans of Konoha. Deciding it would be best to give Naruto a short rundown of what she knew, she relaxed in a lotus position on the ground, prompting the blonde teen to do the same. "Anyways, nearly 30 years ago your mother's homeland Uzushiogakure, which was located in Yuzu no Kuni, was invaded and razed by the combined forces of Iwagakure, Kumagakure, and Kurigakure. As well as half a dozen small villages," she began. "Thing is, that should have been impossible." Hearing this, Naruto adopted a confused expression. Yuzu by definition was an impenetrable fortress. Whirlpools enhanced by chakra that naturally flowed from the village created a natural defense surrounding the island. Only in Uzumaki would know how to navigate through the whirlpools to reach the island, and that secret was only shared with their most trusted ally and village they helped found, Konoha. "That doesn't make sense." Naruto frowned. Jai would never betray an ally like that. "Nah, I don't think the old monkey has it in him to betray anyone." Juri dismissed the possibility of the old bastard doing such a thing. If anything, the old monkey's forgiving nature had been the source of at least two of Konoha's major problems and a few minor ones. But there are those within the village that would go behind the monkey's back to do such things. Fucking rancid sacks of shit. The whiskered teen cursed, knowing exactly who his fiancé was referring to. The 3 old bags of bones that sat on the elder council, 2 of which were cemented in the old ways, having a firm belief that only those naturally born within the village deserved recognition. While the last elder, the old war hawk himself, held a firm belief that only he knew how Konoha should be led and bring every other village and nation under his heel. It was no secret that the old cripple desired to bring the village's Jinchuriki under his control, under the guise of training him for the good of Konoha. No doubt to ensure Naruto would be loyal to him first and Konoha second. There was also little doubt in the whiskered teen's mind that the bastard would no doubt use him to kill the old man and take the mantle for himself. "Anyways, we'll talk more about this in private," the black-haired woman stated as she kicked herself off the ground, landing in a battle stance, her left eye glowing wildly. "Let's continue." "Right." Naruto grinned as he felt his right eye roar to life, emitting a dense red chakra that began to form around him. Meanwhile, Juri's own purple chakra formed around herself. However, before the two could renew their spar, a swirl of leaves caught their attention as Anko appeared in between the two. Holy shit. The snake mistress exclaimed, seeing the condition the training ground was in. I thought you said you two were only going to be doing some light sparring, it looks like all of the fucking shinobi wars happened here. Hey sexy bitch. Juri grinned as she saw her, as she unashamedly dubbed Harem's sister, prompting the dango lover to look in her direction. Trust me, this is a light spar. Anyways, what brings you here? What? Anko let a seductive grin spread across her face, slowly making her way towards Naruto. Each step she took her hips swayed side to side in a seductive manner. Reaching her victim, she slithered behind him, wrapping an arm possessively over his shoulder and across his chest, while she leaned in and gave a sensual lick along his neck, causing him to shiver slightly. I can't come and check on Whiskers. Unfortunately for the whiskered teen in question, the current teasing from the seductive snake mistress was giving him vivid flashbacks of a week ago when he woke up with his head sandwiched between two pairs of heavenly valleys. It hadn't helped when he noticed that both of them were completely nude, their bodies pressed firmly against him, and to make matters worse, he had growing problem down below. In his current position, it was taking all of his willpower to fight off the erection that was threatening to rise up. Meanwhile, the look on Juri's face, while amused of the predicament her fiancé was in, clearly showed the Anko that she didn't believe a word she said. Prompting said snake mistress to sigh and release her blonde lover. Alright, you got me. Anko held up her hands in mock surrender. Well, I would love to tease Naruto-kun more, the old man asked me to retrieve Naruto-kun for something involving the attack on him a week ago. Juri sneered while Naruto frowned at the memory. Suppose we should go see what the old man wants. Naruto sighed, relaxing from his fighting stance. A little disappointed as he was immensely enjoying his spar with his fiancée. Sure, she was a sadistic bitch when it came to training, having lost count of how many times she had beaten him half to death, but he thrived under that kind of training, and the results of their latest spar spoke for themselves. You coming, Juri-chan? Nah, you have fun with the old monkey. Juri gave a dismissive wave. There is something I need to look into. Naruto gave a knowing look before nodding his head, considering the topic they were discussing just moments ago, he had a good idea of what she wanted to look into. Grabbing his jacket off the branch, he quickly put it on before turning his attention back towards his purple-eyed mistress. Moving in, he gave her a quick peck on the lips before leaving the ruined training ground with the snake mistress, leaving the notorious Widowmaker blushing up a storm. One thing he had learned over the week about his fiancée was that despite her aggressive and don't give a fuck attitude, she was unnaturally shy and embarrassed when it came to the more tender aspects of being in a relationship. Oh, I am going to get you for that one, Naruto Koi. Juri commented to herself as she watched the two depart, licking her lips in anticipation. But Naruto and Anko. The two pariahs made their way out of the forest of death and into the center of the village, ignoring the various glares and dirty looks they received from random civilians that did not approve of their relationship as they walked down the main road towards the Hokage's tower. You know she is going to get you for that little stunt back there. Anko warned, a grin spreading across her face. Worth it though? Naruto quipped. With a foxy grin. Who would have thought badass bitch Widowmaker would get so flustered with a little kiss? Only because it's you. The snake mistress reminded the whiskered teen. Anyone else tried that shit, she would rip their balls out of their asses and feed it to them. Naruto and a few of the males within earshot couldn't help but clench their cheeks at the snake mistress's rather graphic description of what the sadistic woman would do to anyone who made any unwanted advances towards her. Anyways, since I've been mostly with Juri-chan all week, how about I take you out to eat after we're finished with the old man? Naruto invited, knowing he hadn't been able to spend as much alone time with the snake mistress as he would have liked to. Are you asking me on a date, Naruto-kun? Anko grinned. That depends on if you say yes. He matched her grin. Do you even have to ask? She challenged as she wrapped her arm around his shoulders, bringing him closer to her while he wrapped his own arm around her waist. Giving the two pariahs a sense of contentment in one another's company. Hey Anko-chan. The voice called out from behind the two, prompting them to turn around to see the form of one Iruka Yamino running towards them, causing both to scowl at the man for ruining their moment. What do you want, Yamino-san? Anko inquired in a clipped tone. Making it clear that she was annoyed by the man's arrival. Now Anko-chan, you can call me Iruka-kun. The scarred Chunin smiled. And I just wanted to invite you out for. Not interested, Yamino-san. The snake mistress rejected the man's invitation before he could even finish. Now, if you'll excuse us, my boyfriend and I have been summoned by Lord Hokage. At the word boyfriend, the scarred Chunin finally noticed the blonde male next to the snake mistress. Taking note of how their hands were entangled with one another, causing the man to scowl slightly, clearly despising the fact that the woman he desired had become involved with another before he could stake his claim. Sorry, I didn't see you there. Iruka attempted to save face, shaking off his disdain for the blonde young man before him. I am hurt you don't remember me, Iruka-sensei. Naruto stated in a fake hurt tone while putting some venom on the man's supposed title. Iruka's eyes widened for a fraction of a second as he took a closer look at the young man. The unruly golden blonde hair, his cerulean blue eyes, and 3 distinctive whisker marks on each cheek. Whisker marks. Naruto, the man stammered, surprised at the change in his former student. Having not seen him since his team arrived at the tower at the end of the second phase of the exams. He had secretly hoped the brat would have gotten himself killed in the forest, seeing as the damned Uzumaki was the primary obstacle in his way for the snake mistress. Now it had appeared that something had happened between the two, bringing them even closer than they were before. Iruka couldn't help but curse his rotten luck and the damn brat. He had something special planned for Anko this evening. Having intended to lure the woman out for a few drinks, and with a little something added to the mix, he was all but assured she would be his by morning, when the deed had already been done, and she would have no choice but to stay with him. However, once again the damned brat had gotten in the way. Took you long enough to recognize me. The blonde scoffed. Anyways, as my lovely girlfriend has stated, we were summoned by the Lord Hokage, so unless you have something important to say, we must be off. Not to sound rude, Iruka ventured, looking between the two with a hint of jealousy. Isn't she a little too old for you, Naruto? I mean, didn't you had a crush on your teammate, Sakura, wasn't it? Anko scowled at the jab about the age difference between the two of them. Hell, she was only 6 years older than him, it wasn't that big of a gap. She was tempted to physically lash out at the scarred Chunin, if not for Naruto holding her hand firmly, giving it a comforting squeeze. First off, I am not that shallow. Naruto began, narrowing his eyes at his former teacher, causing him to shrink under the blonde's gaze. I care little about how old someone is, providing they are legally viewed as an adult. What I care about is their integrity and who they are as a person. Secondly, why would I want a girl when I can have a woman? The blonde continued, moving his arm around Anko's waist to emphasize his point. Now, if you'll excuse us, the old man is waiting. Anko couldn't help but laugh out loud at the shocked expression that now adorned Naruka's face as she fell in step alongside Naruto, letting out a slight yelp in surprise when she felt his hand slip from her waist and gave her rear a firm squeeze. A sadistic grin spreading across her face as she quickly realizes why he did that. Leaving behind a stunned and infuriated Iruka behind as they made their way towards the Hokage's tower. Hokage's office. In the 37 years that he had sat in this office, never did Hiruzen imagine he would be signing off on this. The solution Ibiki had suggested certainly was unorthodox, but well within the confines of the law, albeit a law that had been established during the Warring States era that had all but been forgotten. Is there any particular reason you suggested this? Hiruzen inquired, looking to the head of the torture and interrogation department. She's broken. Ibiki sighed, allowing his shoulders to sag slightly. Mizuki had done a damn good job making her see him as the perfect shinobi before his betrayal. Add in her mysterious informant that manipulated her vulnerability. No doubt she is weighed down by guilt after what she had done to Naruto-kun. The elder man sighed, rubbing his temples. From the reports he read, it was clear the young woman wasn't one of the fools that saw the Jinchuriki as the fox. No, her entire motive for her attack on the teenage boy had entirely revolved around avenging her fiancé. If anyone can fix her, it'll be him. Ibiki grunted with a soft smile. He has a way of cracking open even the most hardened of hearts. Hiruzen could only chuckle in agreement. The report he had received from Tazuna and Tsunami had highlighted that particular talent of the whiskered teen. The super bridge builder had given a complete recounting of how the blonde genin had been able to get the demon of the mist, Zabuza Mamachi, to openly shed tears for his adopted son, whom had sacrificed himself so that Zabuza might live. As well as Tsunami praising Naruto for inspiring not only her son, but the village as a whole to rise up against Geto. Not to mention Ibiki's own experience in witnessing it in action when the whiskered teen motivated the remaining teams to continue with the exams, resulting in even more passing the first phase than he had anticipated. The two were broken out of their conversation by a solid knock at the door. Enter. Hiruzen called out. Upon given permission, the door opened allowing both Naruto and Anko entry into the office. You called, Jai? Naruto inquired. At ease Naruto-kun, Anko-chan. The old man replied, gesturing for the two that had just entered to relax. Which they did, as Anko took it as her cue to hang over the whiskered blonde, her breasts firmly pressing against his back, causing him to blush slightly as the mesh fabric she used, while hiding her goods, ensured he felt everything. It didn't help that seductive snake mistress further teased the poor teenage boy by giving a sensual lick from the base of his neck all the way to his ear before giving his earlobe a playful bite. Anko, could you not molest your boyfriend in the middle of the Hokage's office? Ibiki chastised with an exasperated sigh at the woman's antics. Ever since the two pariahs had become an official couple, the Takebetsu Jonin openly staked her claim whenever she could. Either to tease the poor teen or to make a statement towards any unwanted advances. Fortunately, for the flustered blonde, a knock at the door brought the woman's teasing to an abrupt end. As the door opened, Naruto's eyes locked onto the black-haired woman who had attacked him was lead into the room, her hands and fingers restrained, preventing her from performing any hand seals. Hidden out of sight, under her shirt was a chakra suppressant seal with a kill switch, placed firmly on her chest. Ensuring that if she were to attempt anything, she would be killed immediately. However, he noticed that as soon as she saw him, she immediately averted her eyes, refusing to make eye contact with the whiskered teen. Now that everyone is here. Hiruzen began, bringing everyone's attention to himself before he turned his attention to the restrained Kunoichi. Tsubaki Kodo, by your own admission, you have been found guilty of attacking a fellow Konoha shinobi, as well as a clan heir and of noble birth. As Hiruzen spoke, Naruto took the time to observe the woman who had attacked him. Noticing in her body language that this wasn't the fierce Kunoichi that he had encountered a week ago, but rather a shell of her former self. Almost like she was empty inside, broken even. Such crimes would normally see you executed immediately. The elder man stated with finality, prompting the woman to nod her head in acceptance. Not even offering a defense for her actions. However, Ibiki-sen has offered an alternative. Hearing this prompted both Naruto and Tsubaki to look at the old man. An expression of confusion adorning both of their faces. Under Konoha Law Chapter 2, Article 4b, I am sentencing Tsubaki Kodo to servitude under 1 Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Hiruzen quoted the Warring States era law, earning shocked looks from those within the room, minus Ibiki and Hiruzen himself. "Well, wait," Naruto exclaimed, looking to the elder man. "What do you mean, servitude under me?" "In short, Naruto-kun, from this day forward Tsubaki will be a servant to your clan," Hiruzen explained. "Trust me when I say, this is the best solution. For both of you. How can forcing this bitch to be his slave be the best solution for either of them?" Anko challenged angrily. After what the bitch had done to Naruto, she deserved to rot in a cell for the rest of her life for all the snake mistress cared. Why not just lock her up with the rest of the sacks of shit? Because Anko. Ibiki began, turning his attention to the snake mistress. For one, the prison doesn't separate the prisoners, and with the male population of the facility grossly outnumbering the female population, I don't think I need to spell out what would happen. But the guards. Anko attempted to rebuttal. The guards are there to keep the prisoners inside the facility, not keep them safe. The large man pointed out. Besides, while it doesn't excuse her actions, Tsubaki was being manipulated by false information given by an unknown source. As well as evidence of a more personal betrayal. Naruto frowned at this, getting a sense of what the personal betrayal entailed. Placing a calming hand on the snake mistress's shoulder, the whiskered teen turned his attention towards the woman in question. "And how do you feel about this, Kodo-san?" Turning her attention towards the blonde teenager, still refusing to meet his eyes, bowed her head submissively while folding her hands in front of her, the best she could with her restraints. "I have committed a grievous crime against you and must atone for my actions," she replied in a solemn tone. "I am in your care, Uzumaki-sama." "Alright, none of that sama crap. Just Naruto, please," Naruto stated, not being fond of such titles he didn't feel he deserved. "If you insist on using a suffix, just use san." "As you wish, Uzumaki-san." Tsubaki replied in the same solemn tone as before. "Very well," Hiruzen spoke up, bringing out a piece of sealing paper with an intricate seal already drawn on it, no bigger than the size of a coin. "Naruto-kun, I will need some of your blood to make this official and for all intent and purpose, Tsubaki-san's master." With a reluctant nod, the blonde teen stepped towards the old man's desk and held out his hand, allowing the elder man to draw blood from his finger and drip it onto the seal. Watching as it lit up for a moment before change color from the dull black it was to a reddish-orange color. Getting up from his desk, Hiruzen moved around to where Tsubaki stood, instructing her to turn her back towards him. "Now Naruto-kun, you are going to place this seal on the back of her neck and channel your chakra into it," he instructed. "This will seal the contract between the two of you that will bind you to one another." Naruto followed as he was instructed, placing the seal upon the back of her neck and channeling a bit of his chakra into it. Tsubaki hissed in discomfort as the seal was imprinted upon her skin, connecting to her own chakra coils. Once it was done, Naruto removed his hand, whilst Hiruzen removed the chakra suppression seal from her chest, which fortunately didn't require bare skin contact, and released her from her restraints. "Now Naruto-kun." Hiruzen looked to the blonde teen. "I feel I must notify you that now that the slave seal is on her, Tsubaki-sen will be compelled to follow your orders should you issue them like an order, regardless of what it is, minus inflicting self-harm on herself." Naruto couldn't help but frown at this, but nodded his head nonetheless. "Any phrases I should avoid then?" Just avoid making it sound like a command and you should be fine. Hiruzen offered, knowing the young man before him despised slavery. No doubt the only reason the young blonde even agreed to this was to keep the young woman from enduring a far worse fate. Now, if there are no more questions, you are dismissed. I look forward to seeing the fruits of your training in the finals, Naruto-kun. Silently, the blonde nodded, giving the elder man a fox-like grin before he departed the room with Anko and Tsubaki in tow, closing the door behind them. Sitting down in his chair, Hiruzen let out a long sigh before turning his attention towards Ibiki. I believe you are correct. He stated. This was the right thing to do. Despite her technically being his slave, I know he will not treat her as such, and as you said, he has a way of cracking even the hardest of hearts. Think we should have warned Tsubaki-san that the kid is engaged to Juri? Ibiki questioned with a raised eyebrow, causing Hiruzen to pale at the realization. Shit. Hiruzen cursed under his breath. Jiraiya grumbled in annoyance to himself as he strolled down the main street of the village, ignoring the various shops that lined both sides of the massive street. The white-haired man despised returning to the village every time to make his monthly reports, mainly because due to that thrice-damned bitch, he couldn't do any research for his beloved book series while he was in the village thanks to those damned seals around the hot springs. He had hoped that after the Kyubi attack, the seals would have been destroyed and he would be free to peek upon the local beauties once more, but the damned seals remained intact. If anything, it was like the residual chakra left behind by the attack had empowered them and made them even stronger than before, to the point that his mere presence near the hot springs would alert the Anbu to his location, regardless of which side he was on. Hope that bitch is rotting in hell where she belongs. The Toad Sage thought darkly to himself. At least her bastard child will be useful to me. Despite claiming to be the kid's godfather, the man held no real love for the brat in any sense of the word. It was only because of the vague prophecy spoken by the Toad Elder that he was even interested in the brat. Something along the lines of a child born of two legends, guided by a mighty warrior, shall reshape the shinobi world. Or something like that. Jiraiya never paid much attention to the actual words, only what it meant. At least to him. Though it was clear to the perverted hermit that the child in question was none other than his prized student's brat, as the Yondaime had become quite infamous throughout the entirety of the elemental nations. He could also grudgingly admit that the crimson-haired bitch had a reputation of her own that had given her a legendary status throughout the lands as well. So, that covered the child of prophecy's lineage, and it was clear that he was to be the mighty warrior that would guide the boy. Just need to train the brat up just enough to barely make it to the end, and then being the noble and virtuous man that I am, I will finish what my apprentice started and avenge his death. The white-haired perverted lucidly mused to himself, imagining his perfect scenario for the boy. Women will throw themselves at my feet, begging me to give them children. Even Tsuhaim wouldn't be able to refuse me anymore. Granted, he was well aware there was no feasible way for him to accurately predict the trials and tribulations that the brat would have to face to bring about this change to the shinobi world, which is why he had put his plan in motion early on when he released the boy's status to the civilian populace and had let their own fear take over from there. Thus creating his own trials for the Gaki, isolating the boy and making him desperate for any kind of attention, be it positive or negative. Then when the brat had been enrolled into the academy, he had bribed Iruka Yamino to hold the kid back as much as possible without it seeming too obvious. Even keeping quiet when his spies had discovered that Mizuki was working for his disgraced former teammate, Orochimaru. Allowing the silver-haired instructor to move around freely, knowing it served his own purpose as well. Due to the man's genuine hatred for the Jinchuriki, even though he hid it well, it positioned Iruka to be able to act as a strict instructor in the academy, but a caring older brother figure outside the classroom. It had come as a surprise to the Toad Sage when he had learned that not only had Mizuki had been captured, but had been severely beaten down by the Jinchuriki, rendering the silver-haired Chunin immobilized. Which had resulted in the blonde's field promotion to Genin. When Iruka had first reported this, Jiraiya had thought that the brat had already tapped into the fox's power, but those fears were laid to rest simply by the lack of malicious chakra residue the fox would have left behind. Unfortunately, the scarred Chunin couldn't keep the boy completely isolated as the brat had already formed a strong bond with father and daughter duo at the raiment stand, giving him a sense of extended family. Then, despite all odds the brat had even gotten close to the resident snake mistress, Anko Mitarashi, with the two of them becoming practically inseparable and extremely protective of one another. Iruka had attempted to intervene of course, first by trying to get close to the young ramen waitress. Frequenting the ramen stand multiple times a week, offering to help and even walk her home during the late nights, in hopes of diverting the young woman's attention away from the Jinchuriki. However, it had all been for naught, since the young ramen waitress had been steadily dating the young Hana Inuzuka for nearly a year by that point, throwing a massive wrench into the scarred Chunin's plan to seduce her. With Anko, however, he had found help from an unlikely source in the form of the snake mistress's best friend and practically sister-like figure, Kurama Yuhi, whom had been trying to hook her friend up with a decent guy. However, it had proven to be fruitless as the snake mistress took an immediate disliking the scarred Chunin. Even more so after the man had attempted to bring up his brother-like relationship with a whiskered teen. Even to this day, after countless rejections, some more brutal than others, Iruka continued to pursue the purple-haired woman, reminding Jiraiya of his own one-sided pursuit of his teammate. Jiraiya couldn't blame the man though. Mitarashi was without a doubt one of the finest pieces of ass in Konoha right now, and the only remaining ice queen that had yet to be claimed. Hana Inyazuka had been going steady with Aya Michiraku for the last 3 years. Yugao Yuzuki had started dating Heiichiko just last year, and lastly, Kurama Yuhi had hooked up with Asuma Saratobi a little over 8 months ago. So the question is, who will land her first, Iruka or myself? Jiraiya mentally grinned, knowing he had an ace up his sleeve that the Chunin lacked, a lure to dangle before the snake mistress to lead her on, until she would cave and give him what he wanted, and after he had had his fill of her, he would leave her. Abandoned with promises unfulfilled like he had with so many other women before her. A flash of purple to the right of him caught his attention as the woman in question disappearing behind the cloth flap of the dango stand she often frequented. Seems Kami is giving me a sign. He grinned before altering his direction, following the snake mistress into the stand. It didn't take long for the large man to make his way across the busy street. His large size making it easy for him gently push his way through the crowd of people that had populated the main street of the village. Deciding to listen in to read the room as it were, he stopped just to the side of the doorway and listened in. So, it's been just over a week. He heard the bartender inquire. He could almost imagine the woman's grin on her face, waiting to hear some juicy gossip. Go on any dates with your stud muffin yet? Date? Stud muffin. Jiraiya did not like the sounds of these 3 words together in the same sentence. Could Iruka have actually succeeded in wearing her down to finally give him a chance? Not yet, sadly. In between him training for the Chunin Finals and my own duties, haven't had the time to go out. So whoever this mystery guy is, he's in the finals. The perverted toad sage mused. Could the Uchiha brat have landed her? He didn't seem that particularly interested in any of the girls that chased after him in the academy. Or maybe he has a thing for older women. Of course, Jiraiya didn't dismiss the possibility that she could have gotten involved with one of the visiting genin from Sunagakure or Atagakure. If that were the case, all the better. He could call into question her loyalty to the village to coerce her into sleeping with him for his silence. We were supposed to have the night to ourselves few days back, but the old man called us in and well, that's when he got his new roommate. Heard about that? The bartender replied. How you holding up with that arrangement? I wasn't a big fan of the arrangement at first, considering what she tried to do. Anko replied before chuckling slightly. But, he has a big heart and encouraged us to give her a chance, and to be fair, she has shown genuine remorse for her actions. What the hell are you doing out there, Jiraiya? Came the upset tone of the bartender, causing Jiraiya to jump comically from his position outside the door, all the while mentally cursing himself at getting caught. You got a lot of nerve coming back here after what you pulled last time. Hey. Jiraiya jovially greeted the 2 women as he entered the establishment, ignoring the scowl etched across both women's faces. Kimi-chan. Anko-chan. It's been a while. Well, if it isn't the frog fucker. Anko muttered loud enough for the perverted sage to hear. I thought I smelled desperation and shame. They're toads. Jiraiya corrected with a frown, hating when people called his summons frogs. You didn't deny that you fucked them. The snake mistress retorted with a snort, turning away from the large man. The toad sage scowled at this as the women chuckled at his expense. What are you doing here, Jiraiya? Kimiko inquired, leveling a glare towards the white-haired man. The tone in her voice making it very clear that she was not happy to see him again. Come on, Kimi-chan, you can't still be mad over that, right? You summoned a 300-pound frog on top of my bar, crushing 5 patrons, all to impress some guy in drag. Kimiko pointed out angrily. Toads, not frogs. He corrected once again. And it was a woman, not some guy in drag. Right. The last bit he was not completely sure. Having had more than usual to drink that particular evening. He just remembered being mesmerized by a blonde bombshell with vibrant blue eyes, wearing a low-cut pink dress with yellow flowers, giving him a rather generous view of her cleavage and long slender legs. Oh, trust me, that was a man that you were trying to woo. She pointed out matter-of-factually. Tibony is a regular here and come to think about it, he has been asking about you. Suo. Anko-chan, couldn't help but overhear that you have a boyfriend now. Jiraiya interrupted, not wanting to continue that particular topic as his face took on a sickly greenish color. I guess congratulations are in order. How about I buy you a few drinks to celebrate? You make it sound like you expected me to stay single forever. Anko growled out, not liking that the self-proclaimed super pervert was prying into her personal affairs. And you can take those drinks and your congratulations and shove them up your ass. Now, Anko-chan, no need to be like that. Jiraiya attempted to pacify the snake mistress, only to receive a glare for his trouble. Anyways, I gotta head back before Ibiki bites my head off for taking too long, and I wanna check in on Naruto-kun before my lunch break is over, and with him training in the Forest of Death, going to take a bit to get to him. The perplexed commented, turning her attention back to her friend to bid her farewell, paying for her dango, she disappeared out the door. Not paying the perverted sage a second glance. Jiraiya was silent as he stared at the entryway the snake mistress had just disappeared out of, his mind bepising what he had just heard. While on the surface, it appeared to be nothing, after all his reports had stated that the Jinchuriki and the snake mistress were good friends. However, there was something in her voice when she said the brat's name that suggested otherwise. So you going to order anything or are you just going to stand there all day? Maybe later. Jiraiya replied. I gotta take care of some things while I am here. Not giving any further explanation, he disappeared out the door. Training Ground 44, Forest of Death. Or, dog, bird, monkey, ram. Naruto recited as he went through the proper seals for the summoning technique. Early in the morning, Juri had allowed him to sign her spider summoning contract, a great honor she had told him, as the spider clan were extremely selective of who they allowed to even be considered becoming their summoner, and had given him until late afternoon to at least summon the spider that would become his personal summon. While it sounded simple enough, regulating the chakra needed for a decent summon without overpowering the jutsu required a bit of finesse that he was lacking in. As was evident by the amount of spider hatchlings of varying sizes that were crawling around and on top of him from his multiple failed attempts. Any fool can pour all of their chakra and summon the largest beast they can muster to show off. Juri had told him. You need to be able to summon what you need on instinct. There was wisdom in the Widowmaker's words. He wouldn't always have the advantage of having a larger chakra pool than his opponent. Not to mention it would be foolish to believe every battle will go his way. After all, there were means to seal off one's chakra points. Either through Fuinjutsu, well rarely practiced, or an encounter with a Hyuga. Finishing the required hand seals, he bit his already damaged thumb for fresh blood and smeared it along his palm before slamming it down to the ground. Uchiha no jutsu? He exclaimed. A large cloud of smoke filled the area, far larger than his previous attempts, completely obscuring his vision of anything in front of him. However, his heightened senses told him that he was no longer alone, something was with him, something rather large. As the wisps of smoke cleared, a large spider standing roughly around 6 feet tall stood in front of the whiskered teen. It had an outburst head with 2 great clusters of many-windowed glossy eyes that reflected the rays of sunlight that filtered through the leaves of the surrounding trees, a large horn-like crest crowning its head. Its large body, which looked like a bloated bag, was a midnight black and blotched with lighter shades of gray that wove an intricate design around its torso, while the belly was pale and luminous. 8 bent legs with great knob joints stretched out from underneath its thorax with hairs that stuck out like steel spines running down towards the massive creature's clawed foot. Excited chittering could be heard from the spider as it eagerly clicked its large fangs together, roughly 1.5 feet in length each. Beautiful. Naruto gasped in awe as he took in the sight. Having been fascinated with spiders at a young age, the whiskered teen was left breathless at the sight of the majestic-looking arachnid before him. Why thank you. The spider spoke in a feminine tone, indicating that it was female. You must be our new summoner, such a charmer. That is correct. Naruto replied, finding his voice. I am Naruto Uzumaki, Juri-chan allowed me to sign the contract this morning. Well met, young Naruto. The spider greeted. I am Shelob, daughter of Ungoliant, and as you were able to summon me, that makes me your personal summon. Congratulations. Thank you, Shelob-sama. The blonde Jinchuriki bowed, only to be thwacked on top of the head by one of the spider's legs. None of that Sama are bowing crap. She hissed, showing her displeasure at such actions. The toads and snakes may require such lip service and adulation, but we of the spider clan prefer action over words. I understand. Naruto responded, rubbing the top of his head. For now, I must return to Brazilian Forest so that I may inform my mother of our pact. Shelob stated before giving a soft chuckle. Be sure to summon me when Juri-sama returns. Farewell, young Uzumaki. With that, the large spider disappeared in a puff of smoke before the sound of someone approaching from his left caught his attention. Uzumaki-san. A soft voice came from his left. Looking in that direction, he saw Tsubaki leaping down from a tree branch, landing a few yards away. Lady Juri had requested I bring you lunch. Ah, thank you Tsubaki-san. The blonde smiled warmly at his new arrival, standing up from his kneeling position to greet the former jonin. To say that the last 10 days were interesting would have been a severe understatement, as Naruto had learned all too late that the old man had forgotten to inform the duo of the Jinchuriki's relation to the woman that had hospitalized the raven-haired former Jonin. The poor woman had completely frozen up when Juri had entered the compound, which had only served to amuse the Widowmaker to no end. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending how one would look at it, Juri had kept her amusement to simple verbal harassment and teasing. Though, while Naruto was kind enough not to hang her new status over her head, Juri lacked such empathy and made it abundantly clear of her position. She was to tend to the young Uzumaki's needs. Ever. Single. One. Of. Them. The implications were clear. Which is why, much to Naruto's embarrassment, Tsubaki would join him in the bath every morning and evening to help him wash. The fact that she would bathe with him completely nude had only added to his embarrassment. She was also given the task of cooking his daily meals. Which was why she stood before him with a large bento box in hand. "Smells delicious, Tsubaki-san." The whiskered blonde complimented as he accepted the bento being offered to him, catching a whiff of the tantalizing aroma coming from the bento, giving the black-haired woman a sense of appreciation for her efforts. "Thank you, Uzumaki-san." Tsubaki lightly blushed. Being complimented by a man, even one as young as her master, was a foreign experience to her, as Mizuki had rarely ever complimented her while they were dating, and usually when he did, he would expect something in return. Unlike the whiskered teen before her, whom had no ulterior motive when he paid her a compliment. Opening the box, Naruto found a typical lunch spread for him. A generous portion of steamed rice, enough miso soup for a couple of people, and various other side dishes, such as grilled fish, tamagoyaki, pickles, nori, natto, and a large bowl of udon noodles. Accompanying all of this was a small kettle of green tea and 4 rice balls. The teenage Uzumaki was about to take a bite from the rice bowl in his hands when the sound of a low, almost inaudible, rumbling in front of him caught his attention. Looking towards the source, he was met with an embarrassed-looking Tsubaki, whom suddenly found her Kunoichi sandals to be far more interesting. "Tsubaki-san, did you eat anything this morning?" The whiskered blonde inquired with a concerned look. That is." She stumbled over her words, clearly embarrassed of the situation she was in before compassing herself. "Lady Juri had made it clear that I was to tend to you first and foremost, every day." Naruto frowned at this. While he was aware that his fiancée wanted to ensure that the woman knew her place, he didn't want her to neglect her own health in fulfilling her duties around the compound. Making a mental note to talk with Juri about this later this evening. "Would you like to join me?" he inquired, careful to not make it sound like a command, as he reached into the bento and pulled out one of the rice balls. Extending his arm to offer it to the raven-haired woman. For her part, Tsubaki was taken aback by her young master's kindness. Despite what she had done to him, he still cared about her well-being. Graciously she accepted the rice ball and sat down next to him, though with one burning question in her mind. "Why?" she asked. "Why are you so kind to me, after what I had done to you? Why don't you hate me?" "Because you don't deserve it," he replied after a few seconds of silence passed between them, turning to look at the woman. "You were grieving, and some sick bastard manipulated your emotions with false information to do their dirty work. The way I see it, you were a victim as well." Silence fell between the two once more as she took a small bite from the rice bowl in her hand, her young master's words echoing through her mind, unsure as to how to respond. Though while she felt a sense of relief wash over her, realizing that the whiskered teen did not blame her personally for her actions, she still felt guilty for her actions and the harm she had caused him. "You know, it's funny," Naruto began, breaking Tsubaki out of her thoughts. "Despite the man's hatred towards me, he actually helped me in the academy with my taijutsu and other assignments. I actually trusted Mizuki more than Iruka. Sad to admit, that trust I placed in him was the entire reason I fell for his manipulation to steal the scroll. I guess that makes 2 of us that he manipulated." Tsubaki softly spoke with a sad smile as she recalled his plans to sell her to Orochimaru, meaning all of his honeyed words were nothing more than seductive lies he would whisper in her ears. "While I was in my cell, awaiting my sentencing, I was given all the evidence involving that bastard," she continued, looking down at her lap as she played with the hem of her blue blouse. Among the papers was his journal, detailing his plans to abduct 2 clan heiresses for his own twisted pleasure, as well as his plans to sell me to Orochimaru for experimentation. Naruto remained silent as she spoke, quickly making the connection that the 2 heiresses in question were none other than Hinata and Ino. He watched as her shoulders began to shake as she struggled to hold back sobs of anguish, prompting the whiskered blonde to move forward and pull her into a comforting hug, allowing her to cry into his chest. 250,000 ryo. She sobbed. "That was all my commitment was worth to that bastard." Naruto said nothing as he tightened his embrace around her. One hand rubbing up and down her back while her body racked in sobs, while the other combed his fingers through her hair in a comforting manner. Knowing that it had to have been a horrifying experience for the woman to learn that the man she had loved and committed herself to was planning to sell her off to one of Konoha's infamous traders. Not to mention a man known for performing cruel and inhumane experiments on his victims. It had taken a handful of minutes before Tsubaki had calmed down, now sleeping peacefully in the blonde's lap as he laid back against a large tree he had been sitting under, her head facing outwards, away from his torso, giving the whiskered blonde a good view of her face. By the expression on her face, Naruto had surmised that she had probably not had a decent night's sleep since she found out about her ex-fiancé's horrid secrets. Not to mention, being burdened with the guilt of her attack on him just 2 weeks prior. The being manipulated by a two-faced bastard. Naruto mumbled to himself as he laid his head back against a tree and closed his eyes. His lunch forgotten. This was the scene that Jiraiya had come across as he came into the dense forested area where Naruto had chosen to practice his summoning. A perverted smirk spread across his lips as he brought out his notebook and began to furiously jot down notes of the scene before him. However, he paused when he recognized the woman that now lay in the brat's lap. What the hell is she doing here and with him? Jiraiya cursed. He had planned on setting her up to take the fall after feeding her falsified information through his contacts to try and further stunt and isolate the boy and stall his training until he had arrived. Still, perhaps he could still use this to his advantage and get her away from the boy and perhaps offer her a job working under him. With a grin, he stepped out from his hiding spot. "Well, don't you two make a cute couple?" He loudly announced his presence, waking the two from the slumber. "You're a hard brat to find, you know that." Both Naruto and Tsubaki scrambled to their feet, wary of the strange intruder that had approached them, the latter sporting a healthy blush as she realized the position she had fallen asleep in, which was only compounded by the man's misguided statement. "Who the hell are you?" Naruto demanded, stepping in front of Tsubaki in a defensive manner. Not trusting the newcomer in the slightest. Not to mention the man gave off a creepy, almost stalker-like aura that the whiskered teen did not like. "Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sannin," Tsubaki commented, having recognized the man. A deep scowl etched across her face. "I see I have a fan." The now identified Jiraiya grinned, winking at the raven-haired Kunoichi. "How about we go out for a drink later?" Also a desperate pervert that spies on women in the bathhouses to write that damn trash she calls a novel. She continued, disgust evident in her voice. "I'm not a pervert." Jiraiya defended with a frown before adopting a boisterous expression. "I'm a super pervert." "The fact that you say that so proudly is absolutely disgusting," Naruto quipped. "What the hell do you want?" "Don't be like that, Gaki." The large man waved off the boy's insult in his usual jovial tone. "After all, I came all the way out here to train you for your Chunin Finals." "What do you mean, train me?" The whiskered teen narrowed his eyes in distrust. "Sheesh Gaki, I know you're the dead last of your class, but I figured even you would know what it meant to train someone." Jiraiya retorted, taking a jab on the blonde's horrible academic performances. "Anyways, talk around the village is that you need someone to help you train for." "Not interested." Naruto cut him off. "Come on, Gaki. You're really going to turn down being trained by a legendary shinobi like myself?" Jiraiya persisted. "And not just any of the Sannin, but you're looking at the man that personally trained the Yondaime Hokage. So you trained my father, is that somehow supposed to make me feel obligated to train under you?" The blonde questioned, clearly not impressed by the man's boasting. Partially because the teenage Jinchuriki didn't exactly have a high opinion of his father. While he understood why the man did what he did to save the village, he still felt the man was far too naive in trusting the villagers, viewing him as a hero for keeping the Kyubi at bay and their supposed will of fire. Hearing this, Jiraiya's eyes widened visibly, showing his surprise. How? How the hell does he know? Who told him? The man inwardly seethed in anger before the realization dawned on him. Damn it, sensei. He wasn't supposed to know until I decided he was ready. The toad sage mentally seethed, having planned on manipulating the boy with the knowledge of his parents to gain access to Minato's and that Uzumaki bitch's notes about Fuinjutsu, as well as scrolls on their renowned techniques. Only giving the brat scraps of knowledge to keep him satisfied while keeping the bulk to himself. It had always irked him that his own student had surpassed him in the art of Fuinjutsu and refused to share his knowledge with him, no doubt due to the red-haired bitch. Regardless, he could salvage this and still obtain what he desired. "And why wouldn't you want to learn under me?" Jiraiya inquired, faking that he was hurt by the young teen's refusal to accept his teachings. "As the man that personally trained your father and guided him to becoming the Yondaime Hokage, you should feel honored that I would offer to train you. Not to mention, due to your father being my student, I can help you with his signature techniques. Like his legendary Hirishin no Jutsu and the Rasengan. Yeah, I know, and I am still not interested." The Uzumaki cut off the Sannin once more, earning a growl of annoyance from the toad sage. I will learn my father's techniques at my own pace, not because some desperate perverted frog fucker wants me to. By the sage, they're toads, not frogs, damn it. Jiraiya lashed out, once again feeling insulted as summons were called frogs. You didn't deny that you fucked them. Naruto pointed out, earning another growl of annoyance from the white-haired man. Why are you being so damn difficult, Gaki? The toad Sandin asked with barely restrained irritation. Not to mention, annoyance. Sure, maybe you can handle learning the Rasengan on your own, but you're going to need someone like me that understands the delicate art of Fuinjutsu before you can even hope to unravel what makes the Hirishin tick. Still not interested. The blonde teen stated, not caring for the man's bragging. Besides, I already have someone that understands Fuinjutsu on a far more intimate level, not to mention, they have seen the technique firsthand. Hearing this, Jiraiya narrowed his eyes in suspicion. There were very few that had seen Minato's signature jutsu firsthand, and only 2 resided within Hai no Kuni. Kakashi and himself. It was clear that Minato's last surviving student had no interest in instructing the blonde in his father's technique, and the damn brat was rejecting his own mentorship. As such, the only logical deduction that the spy master could conclude was that someone from outside the village was tutoring and influencing the boy. Which made him a flight risk in the eyes of the toad sage. Come on Tsubaki-san, let's go home, I am done training for the day. Naruto stated as he turned and began to walk away and started to help the raven-haired woman pack up their lunch. Especially since my current training ground is compromised. Jiraiya couldn't help but feel insulted by the whiskered teen's implication, as if he would spy on a mere genin for their techniques. Though he supposed that due to the teen's status, it was only natural for him to feel a little apprehensive about any stranger. Just as he was about to reassure the Jinchuriki that he wasn't there to spy on him, something on the woman caught his attention. The unique seal he recognized on the back of her neck, prompting his eyes to widen in shock before a perverted grin spread across his face. That woman, he began. She's a slave, isn't she? While neither of the duo said anything in response, it wasn't missed how the woman stiffened at his statement but otherwise carried on with her task. I'll buy her from you. Again, he was ignored. 250,000 ryo, Jiraiya offered with a grin as he saw both individuals stop moving, the raven-haired woman going rigid in evident fear. How does that sound? Slowly, the whiskered blonde turned towards the man, his eyes shadowed by his hair, as his left eye threatened to roar to life in fury, while a potent amount of killer intent began to leak out from his body, prompting the white-haired man to take an involuntary step back. How does that sound? Naruto repeated in a cold tone. It sounds like you're nothing but a despicable, decrepit pervert that is so desperate that you need to buy women for them to even be close to you. Jiraiya snarled silently at the insult, feeling his pride being attacked in such a fashion. Listen, Jiraiya the frog fucker, and listen well. The Jinchuriki continued. Tsubaki Koto is not a slave, I don't give a shit what the seal on the back of her neck means, she is a member of the Uzumaki clan. So you can take your offer, shine it up real nice and shiny, stick it sideways, and shove it straight up your ass. To punctuate his statement, Naruto unleashed a potent wave of killing intent while his left eye roared to life, exposing the kitsune-like eye. Much to the Sannin's horror, he was forced to his knees by the sheer potency of the teen's killer intent. Meanwhile, behind the whiskered teen, Tsubaki could only look on in awe as her master defended her status even after what she had done to him a week prior. In the entire time she had been with Mizuki, the man had never defended her in any sense. Always leaving her to fight her own battles instead of relying on him, as he had once said when she had confronted him about his lack of chivalry. Yet, here was this teenager that she had wronged, not only outright refusing the perverted man's offer to buy her, but state that she was a member of his clan, his family. Witnessing this, a light blush dusted her cheeks as she stared at the back of the blonde. Holy shit, I think I just came. A voice sounded from above the trio, prompting the raven-haired woman to look up to see Anko standing on a branch above them. So much killer intent, so much bloodlust, I think I am going to need to change my panties. Don't lie, Anko-chan, you don't wear panties. Came another voice from behind him that the toad sage knew all too well and absolutely despised, almost as much as that Uzumaki bitch. Slowly turning his head to see behind him, his fears were confirmed. Juri Han. He ground out through clenched teeth. The movement from above diverted his attention back to the snake mistress as she leapt from the branch she was on and landed behind the blonde Jinchuriki, wrapping her arms around his neck from behind and planting a kiss on his cheek, which seemed to calm the teen down a little. Though it also confirmed another suspicion the Sannin had, causing him to mentally scowl at the fact that the brat and his former teammate's disgraced apprentice had seemingly hooked up, effectively closing the market on the last ice queen of Konoha. Damn it. He mentally seethed as he saw the two of them together. Looks like both Iruka and I are out of the running to land the finest piece of ass Konoha had on the market. Regardless of the rumors that surrounded the eccentric snake mistress, the spy master knew better than anyone else that despite the way she acted all promiscuous around her friends and comrades, the woman was anything but easy, not to mention, she was loyal. Well. Juri spoke in a taunting tone. If it isn't the toad fucker. They're fro. Damn it. You know, Anko began. It's rather concerning that he is more worried about correcting the species than denying that he fucks them. This earned a round of giggles and chuckles at the toad sage's expense. Wrapping his arm around Anko's midsection, Naruto's left eye returned to its normal blue color as he motioned for Tsubaki to approach him, wrapping his other hand around her shoulders in a comforting manner. What are you doing here, Juri? Jiraiya turned his attention back to the woman that stood behind him. You know. The woman ignored his question. I am in a good mood today, so I am going to give you a word of advice. As she spoke, her right eye began to come to life, prompting Jiraiya to make a mental note of the similarity of Naruto's left eye, doing the same thing just moments earlier. Giving him a rather uneasy feeling at the implications. I don't care what you do while you're in Konoha. Jack off to the women you can never touch, spend all your ryo at every brothel in the village, or let the toads you love so much fuck you in the ass, I don't care. Juri licked her lips as she began to release her own unique energy, far more potent than any killer intent he had ever experienced. But you will stay away from my adorable apprentice and those close to him. The toad sage's eyes widened to comical proportions as he heard this. His eyes darting between the whiskered teen and the deranged woman. Recognizing that he was in a no-win situation, Jiraiya grit his teeth and turned his full attention to the Widowmaker. This isn't over, Juri, he began. I am going to. You're going to do what? The deranged woman challenged with a gleeful cackle, daring him to continue his sentence. Her right eye flaring to life even brighter than previously, giving her a more diabolic appearance. There isn't shit you can do, decrepit toad fucker. So run away, Jiraiya of the Sannin, run away once again, just like you did the night Minato sacrificed himself to defend his home, just like you did in Omegakure against Hanzo the Salamander, and just like you did all throughout the Third Shinobi War. Clenching his teeth in anger, the toad sage took the only logical course and leapt off, vacating the area, as the sound of Juri's maddening laughter echoed off the trees, as if to mock him of his past failures. So, Naruto koi. Juri turned her attention to her betrothed. Have you completed the task I gave you this morning? With a grin, the whiskered teen stepped away from both Anko and Tsubaki and cycled through a familiar set of hand seals before slamming his palm on the ground as plumes of thick white smoke enveloped the area around them. Somewhere underneath Konoha. The clacking sound of a hardwood cane echoed off the stone flooring and reverberated along the dimly lit hallway as a frail-looking elderly individual made his way towards a large set of double doors. With shaggy black hair and his right eye covered with a bandage, an old injury from the war. Alongside an X-shaped scar on his chin. Despite his position in the village, his attire was rather simple. A plain white shirt was worn under his dark-colored robe that concealed his right arm, which was also bandaged. Reaching the massive double doors, the elderly man effortlessly pushed them open and entered what appeared to be a modestly sized laboratory of some kind, with nearly half a dozen scientists moving about the room, working with various complex instruments. In the very center of the room stood a large glass-like cylinder, filled with some sort of liquid. Within the cylinder containment was a nude woman with long red hair, floating weightlessly in the strange flood. Various tubes and wires connected to her body, and a respirator covering her nose and mouth. The elder man stopped just before the containment cell, looking at the woman with an emotionless eye. Danzo-sama. One of the scientists acknowledged the man's arrival. Report. The now identified Danzo commanded. Has there been any progress? I am afraid not, Danzo-sama. The scientist reported. The seals on this woman is beyond anything we have ever encountered. They're not just imprinted on her body, but within her very cells, making it impossible to extract any viable material from her. Danzo narrowed his lone eye at the man's explanation, minor annoyance etched upon his face. The thrice-damned Uzumaki woman had always been a constant thorn in his side when she was active, ensuring he was unable to manipulate Minato to follow a path for the greater good of Konoha. Even the night the Kyubi had been extracted from her, she still had the strength to massacre a majority of his root forces that he had sent to capture her. It had taken roughly 3.5 squads of his own Anbu to finally subdue the woman, and out of 42 men, only 3 survived in the end. We've tried everything, Danzo-sama. The scientist continued. Even extracting her eggs directly ended in failure, as the material immediately rotted as soon as we had removed it from the body. Keep working to find a solution. The elder warhawk commanded as he turned to leave the room. Currently, Kushina Uzumaki is our only chance of unlocking all of the Uzumaki secrets. What of her son? The other man questioned, prompting the elder man to stop mid-step. The Jinchuriki is currently out of reach since Juri Han has returned to the village and had taken an interest in the weapon. To provoke her would be foolish on our part, Danzo stated with a small frown. However, this may work in our favor. Hot Aki Kakashi has been squandering the Jinchuriki's potential in favor of the Uchiha heir, making our weapon defective. Juri's arrival has corrected this error. Having said his piece, Danzo left the scientists to perform their tasks. Unaware of a pair of violet eyes staring down at the aging warhawk before slowly closing once more. Leaving those in the room unaware that the woman was regaining consciousness. Soon, Kushina the evil Uzumaki would rise once more and carve a bloody path with the bodies of those that had wronged her and her family. Starting with one Danzo Shimura. So this part ends here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, so quickly like this video for second part of this series. And comment down below your thoughts about this series. And now it's time for me to go, bye.